Why don't we start off with just kind of your foundational like principles of what you do or what you're attempting to do with your marketing?
Well, I was approached by our athletic director a couple years ago because we get a pretty good fan base in volleyball, and he's like, "Well, we want you to kind of do that for all the sports." And so I tended to really sit down and think about, well, how did we get where we got? We're top 5 in attendance in the country pretty much every year, and so I think the number one thing is, well, first you got to win. Before I got to Angelo State, I mean, they weren't very good, and their average attendance was about 75 people in a 5,000 seat arena. Uh, so you have a product that people want to see. You got to have something that's successful and exciting, and I think our sport itself, it lends itself to that. But you got to win. It doesn't matter what kind of promotions or marketing you do. If you're not winning, it's really hard to get people to come and to come back. The biggest piece is to come back. So some of the things that we do is we really involve our student athletes. People don't come to see me. That's the biggest thing. They want to see our student athletes both around the community and on campus. And so we want to make them visible. One of the biggest things that we do is we send them into the dorms. On campus folks, they have a limited amount of things they're going to do at night. So we print before every home match. We'll print about 2,500 little, 4x4. I got to make sure I'm in the camera. Little 4x4 flyers, just to come out and storm the dorms. So they put a face to a name, and I think it's like, well, what do we do with these? I said, well, you knock on a door and you introduce yourself and you say, hey, we're with the volleyball team. We're looking to our match. And I think they're really nervous about that. And then about the 5th or 6th match of the year, they've got a cheering section, from this dorm where they went, and we attack the off-campus housing as well. We do the same. Want a presence on campus. And so one of the things we do is, a lot of bigger schools will do this already, but we have game day like signs on campus with pictures of our athletes, and it says game day. So they see it around, they know there's a game. And I tell you what, that has drawn a lot of attention. Like if you're at a Big 12 school or an ACC school, and you walk around campus, their branding and their advertising for those types of things is huge. So we're on a smaller scale, we try to do that. You put it in places where students are going to be. You put it in your university center, your student union, you put it in the rec center, you put it in the dorms, you put it in the cafeteria, in major thoroughfares and walkways. So we're trying to get people to see that, hey, there's something going on. Kids want things to do. They don't just go sit in a dorm, obviously, And the third piece of that is, once you're there, we've realized that students, for sure, they don't come just to see the game. The game is not as important as who else is going to be there and what they're going to get when they're there. So we try to entice them with stuff. Free T-shirts and food are the ways to go. We give away a lot of stuff. In the last 2 years, since I've kind of taken on this role, I've given away nearly 8,000 T-shirts. Now, obviously, you got to have somebody that's going to pay those things. And our student folks on campus, the people who are trying to keep students happy, they have stepped in and helped me kind of fund this position. Allowing me to go out and buy things per sport. So I've got X number of dollars to spend on football, and so we do those things. We involve our student athletes. We kind of make sure people know what's going on, and when we get there, we've got to, and so those are probably the 3 major areas that I'm in to try to promote matches, not just my matches, but every sport that's on campus.
Okay. Is admission free for students to come to your matches?
For students, yeah, they bring their student ID. They can get in free. Our ticket prices for non-students is pretty fair, and it's not very expensive, so it's kind of family friendly in the community. We do a lot of things to different nights where kids will get in free and their parents will come half price, stuff like that. There's no better fan than a little girl that just loves to scream at things. That's the best type of fan. And so we try to get those folks and their families into our matches as much as possible.
All right. Well, that brings up kind of a parallel question. Obviously, you talked about what you're doing on campus. What do you do in the community to get those people, get those families, especially? At least for volleyball, I know it's huge. Other sports, maybe the demographics different, but for volleyball, families seem to be pretty big.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we run a ton of clinics all the time. One of the first things I did at Angelo when I got there is I started this, like, we're the Bells, that's our team name, it's a fictitious female Ram, the Ram Bells. So we just call ourselves the Bells, but we create a little kids group, they get a clinic, they get a t-shirt, they get to come and get autographed posters and tour our facilities. They're called our Bell Buddies. So that was the very first thing we did, is we created a little group where those kids are going to get a little pass. They get in free to every match. Their parents can get in at half price. So that was the first thing. And then obviously running camps in the summer, camps aren't just for advertising. You want kids to come to your games and to bring their families. So we make sure that when these kids do come to camp, they walk when our games are, how they can get in free, those types of things. My team is pretty involved with community service. A lot of our kids will volunteer at the Y to coach their little YMCA 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade YMCA teams. And if you ever watch 3rd grade volleyball, it's challenging. It's kind of brutal. But they're there, and so now that particular player has a cheering section. She's got a group of 9 or 10 little girls and their families that are they want to come and see her because of the impact on them. We go out to the Boys and Girls Club, in a couple days a week, and we'll volunteer to help kids do their homework and stuff like that. So those are people that are coming to our games, and so once you start that process, those folks come back. They have an attachment to a player. And I think, like I said earlier, if your players are bought into what you're doing, if they enjoy meeting people and talking to people, then that's really going to help grow your fan base for sure. So those are some of the things that we do in the community.
All right. Are there any other specific demographic groups you try to go after other than the families? Like seniors or, I don't know, faculty?
Well, faculty are big. We have these everyone emails. I'm sure every university has them. Where you can send things out, but most of the time people see everyone and they just click delete. So one of the things that I get to do is I have, with my position as an assistant AD, I can email everyone on campus, but if you're just sending out trash, just junk that they're going to delete, then nobody's ever going to see it. So we do target faculty, but you have to be very creative and crafty with the emails that you send out. Typically, it's got to involve some type of graphic, a unique picture that I have of our team, or a facial expression, just something that's kind of their eye a little bit before they can hit that delete button, and then informational, obviously, where things are at, when they can see our players. I do that before every game for every sport, a couple days out. I get some pretty good response for that. One of the things we do is, like in our senior night, we have our players invite a faculty member to come out with them. They walk with their parents and a faculty member and any other family members. The faculty love that. They feel like they're part of what's going on. If you can involve your faculty in any way, man, they appreciate that, more than anything.
Yeah. Well, and especially in some places, faculty aren't always appreciative of athletics, I would say.
Yeah, well, I think that's probably true at every university. There's always a couple, but we have, we every are, faculty athletic representative, but we go a step further. Every sport on our campus has an FAA, a faculty athletic, whatever the A is, I can't remember, advisor.
Like that.
Yeah, something, so it's not just one FAR for all the sports. So we have someone on the faculty who is interested in our sport and our players. They'll come to our team meetings and our preseason stuff, and just to kind of be a face, a faculty face, so that, when students have questions about like how something's going to work, when our athletes, about how stuff works on campus, they have someone they can go to that they've already met. And ours is the best because she bakes like brownies and cookies and things for us. So that's even better for us. They like that. But, some of the bigger sports, football, they've got a couple FAAs, and so that's something that we do specifically on campus. I don't know that all campuses do that, but it's just a step further than the FAA. Just someone who's interested in your sport first, that helps, and is concerned about the welfare of your student athletes.
Okay. Just something I was thinking about. In terms of the athletes going out and promoting upcoming events and all that on campus, aside from that actual specific thing, in terms of engagement on campus, do they do anything to interact with other groups? Maybe it's theater, or maybe it's language club or anything like that.
Well, one of the biggest groups that we try to interact with is the Greeks, the fraternities on campus, because they are the best fans. They're rowdy, they're fun, mostly respectful, I would say. No, they don't cross the line very often. Once in a while that'll happen, but most of the time, but they show up, they sit in the front row, they paint their chest, they do something, we also have on campus all other groups, all types of groups. Every campus has just a multitude of groups, and so they'll have competitions between the groups. And the people who run those associations, the student-led organizations, they have a competition, and they give them, basically money to spend, for their group. They increase their budgets, if they have the most people there, or the best signs, or they're the loudest group or stuff like that. So they have competitions within the on-campus groups, So it's not just fraternities, but the fraternities are a great place to start. If you have them on your campus, or even if they're off campus, they have competitions between the fraternities, to see who's the best, the loudest, the most involved, all kinds of stuff. And so they're going to want to come. If you have a fraternity, you have a big game coming up and you have a fraternity night, they bring their letters, their giant, like 10-foot tall letters. They set them up in your gym. I mean, it's a big deal. So there are lots of groups on campus like that you can tap into, but that's probably the first one you want to start with. They're probably one of the biggest. Some schools have a band that come, like a pep band that plays. We have that for our basketball games. They come in, and some volleyball schools actually have a band that comes in and plays. So that's kind of cool. There's a couple of years ago, they had a DJ at their matches, and I thought, and Craig's listening, I thought that was the coolest thing ever. And I'm sitting there during the match, and I'm putting in requests, for songs I want to hear in between sets, and the guy was really cool. He tried to accommodate that until the match was over. So, I mean, there's fun. One of the things that you can do, once you get these kids here, like I said, once you get them there, you have to entertain them. If you've got, a video screen in your gym, you've got to utilize it. If you've got a sound system, you have to utilize it. Music, in volleyball especially, music is huge. It can really change the atmosphere in the gym, in that arena or wherever you play. The NCAA Final Four, for volleyball has started using DJ Richey, who's just like between every point, there's a beat, there's something going on, and so music can play a huge factor in both directions. You play bad music and you will lose a crowd really fast, But the in-game environment is what helps keep kids coming back, especially the students. We're fortunate, we have a huge screen, video board, and we've got cameras and all kinds of things. And so we'll put templates up there, like a dance cam. We'll throw some good music on, or a kiss cam, just stuff like that, stuff we see at like Major League Baseball, and, to embarrass some people at the same time, but to keep people engaged in between points, there's a lot of stoppages in volleyball. You know, you've got timeouts. Now you've got challenges. Every point there's a stoppage. You know, so what you do in between those points, in between those things is important. You have to keep people engaged. That's really critical.
Yeah. Yeah. Even when I coached in Sweden, I mean, the setup wasn't anything big, flashy. When it was, from our perspective in the States, it'd be like playing in a high school gym and not even a great one.
Yeah.
But even there, they had somebody with an iPad, just an iPod, I think, just starting and stopping music after every point.
Yeah.
And like you say, it makes a huge difference in the overall atmosphere. And, you know, it helps not just the fans. Obviously, the fans is the main focus. But even, like you said, you know, you're making requests for the bench. You know, but even the people engaged in the event itself are like, yeah, okay, this, you know, brings some energy, which just circles back around, because if everybody's playing is energized, it just feeds into the product.
Well, I think even at the highest levels, like the FIVB has done a ton to work on their game environment, you know, their monster block and super spike, that kinds of stuff, and the music that they play. So it's a part of the game, and I don't think we tap into that enough. You know, it's just that game. You know, when the place is rocking and there's this music and they vibe with it, they get into it, and you know, and it makes it more fun, just more fun for the fans, for the players, for everybody involved.
Yeah, we had a conversation yesterday with Clayton Lucas, who does a lot of broadcasts for FIVB, and he's talked about, he's been involved in some of those conversations as they developed this, especially the in-arena experience. And he talked a little bit about he worked the 2012 games in London, and he was like I think he was the in-arena speaker. And he talked about the contrast between what he was allowed to do for the indoor game versus what he was allowed to do with the beach game. And the indoor game was pretty much announce the starting lineups and call out the subs. That was it. But for obviously outdoors with the beach game, there's a heck of a lot more that went into it. The vibe is completely different. Yeah. And it sounded like the FIVB that was kind of a part of maybe pushing FIVB to say, hey, you know, we need to do more. Yeah. This is just dull.
Yeah. The beach game has been a big influence on that side of things. You know, it's entertainment. You know, it's not a contest. It's a show. You know, and the more that you can look at your events on your campus as entertainment value, and more than just a contest, you know, between two opponents, the more people are going to like it. The more people are going to come. You know, I think that's a critical piece to any type of marketing promotion is if you can get them there, that's great. But what are you doing once they're there? You know, what are you doing to keep them there, keep them engaged, and keep them coming back? You know, I've got people on my campus who they literally know nothing about volleyball, but they come to the games because it's fun. You know, I mean, we've got, our sport has great athletes, you know, and it's a competitive game, and they don't know that, you know, until they get there. And so now they're like, wow, I want to come back. And you have to do things, though, to keep them coming back. You can't just exactly your sport itself to be the draw for these kids to come back. You've got to, and it's disappointing as a coach to say that, you know, a little bit, you know, that my sport isn't enough, you know, right. But every sport is saying that, you know. I mean, I live in Texas, and we play on Friday nights, and Friday night lights is real deal, you know. And so I'm competing with a stadium, you know, 3 blocks away that's got 20,000 people in it watching a high school football game, you know. And I can still get 1,500 people in my gym, you know, to come watch us play. So that says that we're doing something right, you know. And that's cool, you know. That's fun that you know, because you know, Odessa Permian is 2.5 hours away where all that stuff took place, and that's not the only place it happens. It's everywhere in the state of Texas. So if you have a product that people like, and you keep people happy and keep people engaged while they're there, they're going to come back, even with all the other stuff that's going on, you know? Yeah.
One of the things that we struggle with in volleyball is because the awareness level still isn't super high. Yeah. In Texas, it's probably a little bit different because girls volleyball is huge. Yeah. It's gigantic. So there's probably a bit more just general awareness of what volleyball looks like, what real volleyball looks like. Yeah. But in other parts of the country, in other parts of the world, until you get into the gym, people have no idea. Yep. So I think a big part of what we're trying to do is get those people in the gym to actually appreciate the physicality, the speed, the technical dimension of it. So what are the things that, you try to use as hooks to get those sorts of people, the newbies in the gym?
Well, first of all, you have to get in front of them. That's the biggest key. You have to get in front of those people. And the first place to start is with your booster club. They'll be, we have in the fall, we have weekly luncheons with our booster club, and our coaches have an opportunity to get up and speak about their sports and what's going on, that kind of stuff. And so if you get up there and you are just humdrum, boring, nothing exciting to talk about, then you're not going to get any of those people to come to your game. But if you get up there with video and show something that's going to catch their eye, like you said, what do I use? Well, you show an athlete going up and just blasting a ball through a split, and show them why this worked, why are we one-on-one here? And you teach them some things about the game. Every week, these meetings, I teach part of the game. The first question you always get, why does the one girl always have a different jersey on? What's her deal? That's the first question almost every volleyball coach gets from a new fan who's never really seen it before, So you come in and you try to teach parts of the game to people who have no idea, but you've got to teach it on a very, fundamental level, so that it makes sense to them. And you have to compare it to other sports, because West Texas, everybody knows football. They know basketball, but they don't know much about volleyball. So you have to equate it into terms of, why this is working, so isolating an attacker, why is that like basketball? Well, this is like a one-on-one or a clear out, or there's no help, and so, you just do things like that. To kind of give them a perspective they understand. Second thing I do is I try to get out in front of a lot of groups in town. The Lions Club, the Kiwanis Club, all those types of, they're always, every week, they have a speaker, and they're always looking for people to come in and talk to them. So that's 30, 40 people every week, and it's a different group that you could potentially get out and get in front of. Right. So if you want to entice those new fans and try to, get them in the gym and teach them how your game is, you have to get in front of them first, and you can't be afraid of those opportunities. It happened on accident. They came to me, because, he's the new kid in town. He's, all the other coaches have already spoken. Let's go get that guy. And so I love being in front of people. You can probably tell it's easy for me to talk. I can talk about anything to anyone at any time, but not everybody's like that, so you have to have some things to talk about, that aren't necessarily about yourself, but about your sport, your athletes, the people in those groups. I'd love to hear about your athletes. Sometimes bringing an athlete to one of those functions is a good idea, because they don't want to talk to me. They don't want to talk to the athletes. Well, what's he really like? What is it really? Those types of questions. And, but if you don't ever get in front of those groups, you're going to struggle to kind of create a bigger fan base. You have to be, brave enough to kind of get out there and put yourself out there in front of those types of groups. Yeah.
And what you were just saying about bringing the players ties back in with what you're talking about in terms of just getting them in the community overall. And I agree. I think maybe even more so in the women's game than the men's game, but I think both sides. The more the community gets to know the players, participants, the more engaged they are with it, the more they care about how they do and what's going on. The more likely they are to come out and support you and not just come into the matches, but in other ways that, could be beneficial.
Yeah, that leads into something really important. Like every team has got their characters, those people who are just like the life of the team, the one that everybody kind of revolves around. You need to capitalize on that from a marketing standpoint. That person needs to run your Instagram page, needs to be the person that is out front, the one that has that personality that everybody wants to be around. And some teams have more than one, especially with the bigger sports. So, but it's really hard for the average fan to get to know your athletes. And so some ways you can do that, your sports information department can do like an athlete spotlight on their website and social media and all that type of stuff. But one of the things that we found is so fun, but also really effective is, you go to the Final Four and they do the intros and they show the players, and the players will be up there and they'll spin a ball or do something fun, when they announce their name. Well, every school has the ability to do that. If you have a screen in your, I can't say every school, but if you have some type of screen in your gym, when you do intros, you can get a glimpse of the personality of that student athlete. And even if you don't have something in your gym, those are clips that you can put out on social media so that people can learn about your athletes. They can get a glimpse into who they are more than just, oh, that girl's she's a big middle, or whatever you want to talk about.
Right.
Any type of thing that gets out there that kind of just showcases who these kids are, not just what they do. We had one of our student athletes sing the national anthem, at one of our matches this year. And I got more comments about that than just about anything else we did all year. I never knew she could sing, and she can really sing. I mean, she's awesome, but, every team has that type of student, that the one that's just fun to be around, that people really like, and you can really capitalize on that, because the students want to know who they are, but more importantly, the community wants to know more than just what they do. It's about who they are. And so anytime you can do that, and it creates a buzz, and it creates an opportunity for people to want to learn more about that student athlete.
Sure. You mentioned a couple of things about social media. Do you have a specific plan that you kind of follow with your social media?
I don't know if I do anything specifically, but one of you need to have good pictures, okay? And volleyball, you as a coach, you have to train your photographer. For 2 years, I had pictures of the net tape across somebody's face like this. I'm like, man, you can't shoot through the net, unless you're at a different angle, and I'm losing these kids' faces. So you have to really train your photographer how to take pictures. And sometimes some really minimal light, not well-lit places, because some places they don't let you use, like the big room flash,
Sure,
and that
yeah.
kind of stuff. And, so you got to have good pictures. And then once you have those pictures, you have to be able to put them out there, and to catch people's eyes. So that's the first thing, is you have to have something visual and something graphic that looks appealing, looks cool, Second is hashtags. Man, that's how you're going to market your team. Like in Texas, it seems like every school has something, A&M is Gig 'em, and then Hook 'em, and Guns Up, and so at Angelo State, we're Ram 'em. But I wanted something specific to my sport, and so we're the Bells. And so that's where Bell Yeah came from. It was me and my sports information guy about 7 or 8 years ago. Like, we need something that kind of sounds bad, but isn't bad, but kind of catches people, And so, Well, yeah, Bell Yeah. And so that's how it happened, just like that. And every sport can kind of do that, but you got to be creative, and not everybody's mascot will lead to something like that. But you see more and more, like when a program will put something out, they'll have some type of hashtag that represents them and them alone, not just their school, but their sport too, And so anything you can come up with that's creative like that kind of sets you apart from not only just the other sports at your school, but from school to school, you can latch onto. And man, we've been on that for a long time. And I see other schools and some of their mascots. I'm like, man, this would be a good one, but I don't tell them, I got to keep some of those secrets, But yeah, there's I would say a plan is you need to be out there. You have to have, Facebook isn't as popular anymore, but most of the people our age, they're on Facebook.
Yeah.
They're not down.
Right.
They're not on, Twitter. Some of them are, but you need a Twitter account for your team. You need an Instagram account. You need a Snapchat account. And this is when I first started doing this with all the other teams. That's the first thing we talked about is this is how kids communicate. They're on their phone. It's a Snapchat story. It's an Instagram story. You have to have these out there. And, you can talk to your communications and marketing folks on your campus, because I'm pretty sure that most of them at this point have an Instagram account, and they have these filters, and they can create filters for you for your events and for your games and for your matches. So you can tag what you're doing specifically, that they're at the game, and
Yep.
And those are huge things. So a plan is, I don't know if I have a plan. The plan is to be out there all the time. If you've got a couple of days and you haven't put something out on one of your social media platforms, you're missing the boat. Even in the off season, especially right now, when everything is kind of seeming a standstill, you need to be present in your recruits' lives, in your fans' lives, and you have to put stuff out there that makes you seem interesting, and something they can't wait to get back to.
Right. What's the kind of the social media workload balance between sports info and the team?
I guess that would probably be school to school. We try to work really closely with our sports information people. They're the ones that are creating the graphics that are going to go out, and I do some of that, but it's like a super part-time thing.
Right.
I don't know all the tricks, the bells and whistles, like to create some of these graphics. And so we try to work hand in hand with them, because they're, at the same time, they're advertising your games. It's not just the sport itself. They're doing things to kind of promote your games and put schedules out there and that kind of stuff. So, the better relationship you have with your sports information people, the better your chances are of really promoting your events successfully.
Sure.
But they're overloaded.
That was part of my point. Is you go someplace, you got 2 people trying to cover 20 teams.
Yeah, it's a challenge.
And as a coach, you're like, okay, I'm happy to take some of this load.
Yeah.
But there's also times when those folks get a little territorial, and maybe don't want to give up control of certain things. So you're like,
right.
Okay, I'll help you, but you got to let me.
Yeah, it's important to have a great relationship with them and to understand that you are not the only sport there. Sometimes we as coaches, we get territorial. We're like, well, I need this and I need this. And they're like, yeah, so do the other 20 teams on campus.
Right.
And so that's a challenge. At the bigger schools, like they'll have, a lot of them will have someone assigned to their sport. So that makes it a little bit easier for them. But like for us at the Division II level and probably at the Division III level, we're all hands on deck. You're right. 2 or 3 people to cover between 15 and 20 sports is crazy. So you have to respect their workload and their time. You have to let them know this is what we need to be where we want to be, And so we work a lot together. And but you really have to work hard to develop that relationship.
Mm-hmm. Do you guys do anything with the live streams? Are you to the point where you can capitalize on those in any way yet?
In the conference now, the Lone Star, everybody live streams all their contests. Well, I can't say all. I don't know if like some of the smaller sports like golf or, tennis have the capability to do that yet. But I know that like volleyball, football, basketball, baseball, I think most softball, everything is webcast, live stream. And most of them now have announcers. I mean, it's not just a camera, just there's the game, go watch it. It's more of a production now. So, and actually there's a common launching pad from the conference now. Instead of going to each individual school to find the webcast, you can go to the conference and find any game from any school at any time. Some of them charge, some of them don't charge. It's minimal. If you're going to go and watch a bunch of sports for that team, get the monthly subscription. For myself, this is interesting because, my daughter is out playing volleyball and I never get to see her, but I'm always buying other schools, webcasts, so just so I get a chance to see her, and,
right.
And Volleymetrics has been a great thing because now I can go just pull up any of her matches, but it's fun to watch them live if you can. But yeah, most everybody has webcast capabilities now, and most of them are doing it.
Yeah. Okay. Just a real quick side note for the attendees. If you guys have any questions, feel free to shoot them in at any time. We'll work them into the conversation. It doesn't really matter what the topic is. In terms of the live streams, do you get much in the way of statistics or information or anything on viewership or Who's tuning in or anything like that?
That's a good question. I don't really know the answer to that question because that all goes through our sports information people. I've never really asked. It's not an avenue that that I try to push just because I want people in the gym. But I know that there's plenty of people who aren't local who can't get to games and stuff like that, or folks like me who live 9 hours away from their athlete or their friend's athlete or whatever. But it's not much that I've used. I'm sure that they have answers to those questions, like those type of analytics, but I've never really asked them about it.
Yeah. I imagine at a certain point, there's going to be a move to try to do more than just, okay, we're sending out the live stream. We're going to try to make something of it.
Yeah.
Make either more of a production or try to use it to offer value in a different way than obviously and in the arena sort of thing.
Well, I agree. One of the things that we did is, not every school has this, but we have a really strong communications department, like video production type stuff. And so we got them involved with the web stream, the webcast stuff. And so it's a production for them. They train their students. One of my students was a communications major. And so I saw her on a Sunday soccer game and, she's working a camera, because we were off on Sunday. So that was pretty cool to see that. But if you can get your school's like video production group involved, man, that will amplify your ability to come up with, to have a great production for sure.
Okay. I had a question in mind. Well, okay, let's circle back. You mentioned getting the boosters involved. Do you have specific things that you have them doing during the season and during the off season to either encourage attendance or just to publicize or whatever?
With the boosters, I make sure that they know about all of our events first. Like I said, I have weekly access to them during our season in the fall. And so I have a video presentation for them every week, and so part of that is teaching the game because this is West Texas, honestly, where I live, and it's football country. And if it's not football or probably basketball, they don't really know much about it. So I take that opportunity to kind of teach the game for sure, but also tell them, hey, this is what's coming up. Or we have a Dig Pink event coming up. We're trying to raise money. I'll bring in T-shirts. I'll sell them to them there on the spot. And they're like, they see Johnny buy a shirt, and so they're all competitive. I'm like, well, I got to get a shirt, and my wife needs a shirt, and I've got 2 granddaughters. They need a shirt, So I take those opportunities with the boosters to make sure they know about our events, to kind of coach on sport. And so, but I'll have them come up to me like after matches and like, oh, this is what you talked about, like in one of our luncheons, like why this person did this. And so anytime you get a chance to engage with them, and I tell you, getting in front of them is a great thing. But outside of that, I've invited boosters to practice. We have one booster who's real friendly to volleyball. He loves coming to practice. He'll come watch and sit and, interact with the players a little bit. And, he's fun to be around, and every sport has people that are like that really they like the sport, whether they had a daughter that played or a son that played, so invite them to a practice sometime. Let them see what it's really like, in your gym, in your environment.
Okay. All right, got some questions coming in. First one is here from Sean, who's asked, when you try to expand your audience by going after new demographic groups, have you ever found that you inadvertently alienate an existing demographic or a group? And I would may extend that by saying, how can you avoid any alienation of any sort?
Well, one of the great things about our place is that we have a huge arena, and so everybody can fit. Everybody can have a voice, and whatever voice they want. I don't know that we've ever really. I guess if you ask somebody to be there, and you don't recognize them somehow, that's something that can happen. So very careful, especially if we're inviting particular groups to come. to just acknowledge their presence. That's really important because, you know, there was one time a few years ago where we invited one of the fraternities to come to a game, and you know, we didn't recognize them. Now, it sounds kind of dumb, I think, but it's not. You know, they're coming because you asked them, and all they want is a quick shout out. You know, something
Right.
like that. Hey, thanks to Phi Kappa Alpha or whoever, you know, for coming out tonight. You guys were great. Or a shout out on social media is even better because now they can all tweet it and retweet it and say, hey, we were here, you weren't, you know, we're great, you're not, that kind of stuff to the other fraternities, that kind of stuff. So I haven't really, that's probably the only opportunity that we've had that has alienated somebody when we don't recognize someone we've invited. It's important that if you're going to reach out to a group, make sure that you are doing something throughout the course of your match or your game that recognizes that group, even if it's just something on the board or a quick video shot of them. Hey, look who's here tonight, that kind of stuff. But a follow-up on social media is really powerful.
Okay. Craig wants to know, what does the collaboration process look like with your SID, marketing people, and coaching staff during the off-season to develop a comprehensive plan for the upcoming season? It's a very sophisticated question there, Craig.
Well, he's a sophisticated kind of guy. You know, in the off season, there's not a lot because I'm kind of focused on the other sports. You know, that's the one time a year that I have time for the other sports. But we have those conversations before those seasons start. You know, talking about what are the things that we need to help promote these matches and games that are coming up. What is the timeline? How do we, like, every week, you know, there's a schedule of events, you know, and what are we doing to promote these matches and games? When are we putting things out? What specific things are we putting out? And so we have basically a weekly plan that's set up months in advance.
Okay. There you go. Hope that answers your question, Craig. Let's talk a little bit about sponsors, because you talked about having to spend $8,000 on T-shirts.
Yeah.
And that has to come from somewhere. So, what's your basic approach to trying to go out and attract sponsors? Either get new people to sponsor you, or maybe get a little bit more money from folks that have been helping you out for a little while.
Well, fortunately, that is not something I have to do. We have a development person who's dedicated full-time to athletics. And so I'm not out knocking door to door. I'm like, this is what I need. I have a meeting with him, and I say, this is what we need. You know, we need an inning sponsor for a baseball game. You know, because we'll have, like, after the fourth inning, we'll have a little promotion out there, you know, and so it's this year it's a dizzy bat, or it was, I guess, a dizzy bat race. Last year it was steal third base, you know, where you got to race in and steal the base in a certain amount of time. And in softball, we have a throw for dough, and we need groups and people to sponsor those events. You know, it's basically, if you do it, you win $50. And so every home game, you need $50. And we have a halftime for basketball, half-court shot. In volleyball, we have you got to hit this banner to win $50. And so, but I don't secure that money, which is fortunate for me. But we do have a development person, you know, basically a professional fundraiser type guy who approaches different groups and companies and corporations and individuals about wanting to sponsor those types of events. So that's not on my plate, fortunately. So I don't really have to do that stuff.
Okay. Going back to, we talked at the very outset about the cost, the entry being free for students with their ID, paid for other people. One of the discussions that goes on in our sport is that tension between, okay, we want to get as many people in the gym as we can, so they're going to be encouraged to do that if it's free.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that kind of devalues the sport because we're not putting a cost on it associated with, like, some other entertainment options.
Yeah.
So where for you is that kind of trade-off happening?
Well, you know, I'm torn because I see both sides of that argument for sure. You know, everything in college athletics is a potential revenue stream, and ticket sales, season ticket holders, that kind of stuff is really important. It's a part of college athletics. When you have season ticket holders and you deliver their tickets, that's a pretty cool type of event, that your student athletes can have in every sport. But at the same time, I realize that we're limiting some people who would potentially come, but they don't come because it's $7 a person or something like that. It's cheaper than a movie, but it's not for everybody. So yeah, there's a fine line between those two things. Same thing with charging for gas. You should not charge. I don't know the right answer to that, what the right balance is for that kind of stuff, but. I think at the end of the day, if you have a quality product, something that's good entertainment value for a family, then they're still going to come, But like I said, that's going to depend on your student athletes. It's going to depend on your game environment, what you're doing to reach out in the community to get these people here. That's what value in family entertainment for sure. What the monetary value is, I don't know. It's important though that you realize that you don't price people out of the market. If you want families to come and you're charging $10 a ticket, then families aren't going to come. Now they'll go to a football game or something like that because that's West Texas and that's what it's about. But they're not going to come to a sport that they're kind of iffy about if it's priced out of their range. You know what I mean? So you gotta charge. And fortunately, I don't make those decisions. Those come from way higher than I do. But if you are going to charge, you got to make sure it's family friendly and that people can still come and not have to spend $50, just to get into the game or anything like that.
Okay. Joe sent in a question, and some of it you've kind of addressed already. He's curious about what your attendance numbers look like. I would ask, how does that split between the free students and those who are actually paying?
We're generally around, like our average attendance for volleyball is probably close to 1,000 people, maybe a little under that. For bigger matches, we'll have 1,500 or 2,000 people in there if we promote it well, or if it's a big opponent, or if it's an event, like a Dig Pink night, something like that. But our average attendance is 900 on a regular night or on a Saturday. Saturdays are a little tougher. But what was the second half of that question?
I was just curious if you have a sense of the balance between, or the split between students, the unpaid students, and the paid families, et cetera.
That's a good question. I get those reports and I look at them, but I usually just look at the bottom line, like how many people were there. It's probably more community than it is students, which is surprising probably, but students have a lot of things to choose from, but we're trying, everything that we do is to try to get more students to come to the game. Because while we do have some quality senior citizens that come and love to yell at the officials in every sport, they don't carry the same weight in the gym and how the gym feels as a college student athlete. And if you've got a college athlete or a college student there, and he gets into it, and then the guy next to him gets into it, and the girl next to him gets into it, and all of a sudden it's kind of like a mob mentality, and like everybody's into it. You don't always get that with just the families, but I would say it's probably 60-40 right now, more community versus students, and I'd love for that to flip, not losing any of our community folks, but just having more students there.
Okay. Extending Joe's question, he's asking how I guess in a way, does what you get in terms of gate receipts offset at all the expenses of actually putting on the event? Do you have any sense of that?
Not even close. gate receipts go to running the ticket office and that kind of stuff. We don't ever see that as individual sports, most likely, and a lot of places are like that. So they're not charging money to raise money for the students or for me to market and promote. They're just there to kind of run the ticket office. It's kind of a, unless you're a Power Five, you're probably losing money in athletics every year. But that's probably true across the board. But any kind of revenue stream you can get kind of helps minimize the bleeding a little bit. But we don't get any direct benefit in terms of our volleyball program from if we get 2,000 people in and 1,200 of them paid to get in. We're not seeing that. I wish we were, but it goes into some, those black hole funds that you never see the money again. But I can't say that it doesn't benefit us because it goes into creating the environment and creating the event, from a ticket sale perspective. So it's important. I don't want to minimize that. Any type of revenue stream like that is important in college athletics, but it's not, we don't see the direct benefits, but there are some indirect benefits for sure. Yeah.
I think that my sense of where Joe might have been going with this was, does the added cost of doing the things that you do in the arena to enhance the experience get balanced out at all by, maybe selling a few more tickets?
Potentially. But usually the marketing promotion stuff is really almost always geared towards students, and those students get in free. Sure. So I would say no. But here's the side that I want to talk about is that when you have a great game environment, your teams are usually going to have a better chance to be successful. Athletics are the front porch of every university. We have just every school has this. They have academic programs that are top 10 in the country in one particular area, and then we have that too. But we get more press from athletics than anything else combined on campus, unless something really awful happens, and not all press is good press. I don't believe, but so when we can create that environment for people to come and people start talking about athletics and all of our sports are winning, in a game environment, definitely there's a direct correlation environment. And I think, it helps for sure. So it may not be a monetary payback, but it is a payback in terms of the school and increased enrollment and more people talking about your university and people who have friends back home, and they come, maybe they're not a student athlete, but they have a friend who had a great experience there, and they talk about going to the games. Now they want to come to Angelo State because of just that type of stuff. So when your front porch is really big and open and grandiose, and what people like, the more people are going to come. They're going to notice it. So definitely indirect benefit for sure. And no, those ticket sales and stuff don't counterbalance what we spend, but the what you're receiving comes in different ways. And I think every university wants increased attendance, and so I think that there's the benefit there.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that a lot of people don't necessarily realize is that athletics is basically a big marketing arm for the university.
100%.
Do you guys do anything in the way of like season tickets?
Yes. So football and basketball have the season tickets for themselves. All the others, and they have reserve seating. But all the other sports, every other sport, volleyball, soccer, baseball, softball, it's general admission. So they can buy a season pass to all those general admission type sports, but they treat it like a season ticket. But sure. Football and basketball definitely have season ticket holders. They get first option, that kind of stuff. And obviously there are reduced rates for season ticket holders because they're buying the whole season's worth of tickets for sure.
Are there any like advanced tiers for the season ticket holders? Because like, for example, I remember Mike Hebert, I think, writing about some of the stuff that he did. I don't remember if it was Illinois or Minnesota, or probably both, where he knew that there was a certain number of season ticket holders who would be willing to spend more money if you give them something, preferred parking or like you said with football, basketball, preferred seating, or just something maybe lunch with the coaches or, some add-on thing that really didn't cost you a heck of a lot of money or time, but could generate a little bit more revenue.
Well, they do that through our booster club, like the preferred parking and that type of stuff, especially for football. The tickets themselves, it's just reserved and general seating. So there's not a ticket per se, but there are tiered packages within our booster club that come with some of those things you're talking about. So, preferred parking or early entry or, luncheons with the coach, that type of stuff. Those are all more booster stuff versus ticket sales.
Sure. All right, changing gears a little bit and kind of touching back on something you talked about before. Sean wants to know, you mentioned doing faculty night. Do you have a favorite promotion outside of the stuff that's become popular every season?
The best fans, the best environment we've had has been our Greek nights. The Greeks, man, they bring it. They come full force, and they know that they're all going to be there, every branch, every different chapter that's there, because they want to be better than the other chapters that are there. What we do is when we have those types of nights, I think I mentioned this, that they compete for something. I can't remember, one of the faculty members said, okay, the loudest, the most spirited Greek group is going to get, donuts at class the next day. I can't remember what it was, but it doesn't matter what they're competing for. They want to win. It could be for a roll of pennies. They don't care. They just want to be better than the other groups. So those nights are the best attended. The most rewarding nights are nights. We auction jerseys off. We buy pink jerseys. The team wears pink jerseys, and we auction them off during the match. And so you get these little girls who are like, Mom, I want number 7's jersey. She's my favorite player. She looks just like me. I want to be just like her. And so they're going to spend $200 or $300 on a sweaty jersey that we give to them right after the match. The girl, it's soaked. The girl just got done playing. She puts it on, and the mom is cringing, especially now. And they want them to sign it. And those girls are wearing these jerseys to future games. I mean, those are the most rewarding nights. Those are the ones I like the most. But the Greek nights are the best, man. There was something else last year, which was kind of fun. San Angelo Independent School District, SAISD. Well, we had an SAISD game, and it was mid-afternoon. And so the school district was busing kids in. I know some of the other schools in our conference were, but we had 2,000 kids, just kids. It was an afternoon game. It was our tournament in the gym, and they don't care what they're screaming about. They just are happy they're out of school, and they're going to scream, and they give them like $5 to go spend at the concession stand, which is like treasure. I mean, it's like the greatest gift ever. And so those are really fun games, especially, we've got 3 or 4 middle schools here, and they just bring all the middle school athletes. They come, boys, girls, and that was something we started doing this past year. That was a lot of fun.
Okay. Slight correction. Sean's question was actually about faculty.
Okay.
He's just curious if there's anything creative you guys do with the faculty beyond, like you mentioned specifically bringing them out during senior night, or any other recognitions or anything like that you do during the season?
We've done some, honorary coach, like a faculty member that's an honorary coach. In baseball or softball, they can throw out the first pitch. I know there's some schools in our conference that will have them come out and serve a first swing of ball. It's usually brutal. They usually cannot serve.
Yeah, it is.
So whenever I go to those schools, I look forward to whoever's going to come out and embarrass themselves trying to serve. But that's one way. Free admission members, that type of stuff. We've done stuff like that. We've had our players just invite you're going to a class, you're asking that member if you can put something up on the whiteboard about our game, and then you publicly invite them, hey, we'd love to see you come to the game, stuff like that. Nothing Beyond that, really as far as a promotional night type thing, I'm sure. So if anybody has any suggestions, let me know.
When I was at Brown, we actually, I don't know, I think this just only happened 1 year. I don't know if they were trying to start it or what, but the student athletes actually brought their coaches to classes. So like just on a rotating basis, one of us from the staff would go to this player's class and to that player's class and whatever it was, which was definitely kind of a surreal experience.
Well, there's some coaches out there that can't be off their phone for like 2 seconds. So I'm sure they'd be getting in trouble quite a bit in those classes.
Yeah.
But not a bad idea though. I like that.
Right. All right, we're up on the hour. Does anybody else have any questions that they want to ask? Well, we still got Chuck available here. In the meantime, for those of you who might not be on the update list, I'm going to put in the link here so you can get on it, so you can know the schedule and get the recording after we're done and all that sort of stuff. Whoops, I just sent that only to Joe. There we go. Let's change that. All right. Give it another minute. It's for me, the marketing side of our sport is obviously it can be really frustrating because we are competing with football and basketball most of the time. Yeah. And in certain schools, maybe something else that is a really popular sport. But, it's a nice challenge to be able to get out there and be creative and figure out, okay, how can we take attention away from these other things? And not just sports, but as you said, college students have so many different options.
Yeah.
How do you get that attention and grab them? So, it's a nice.
I think something to add to that is you mentioned the other sports, but every university has a built-in fan base with those other student athletes. If you have a group of student athletes, I don't know about every school, but most schools have a beginning of SAC event with all their student athletes. I know that we do. But you show up, your team shows up to a football game. Well, now the football team is going to come to your game, or you go to a baseball or softball game, and so there's 200 or 300 built-in fans that are really good fans. They know what it's like to compete, right. And they appreciate it. So I think if you can, your relationship as a coach with the other coaches is really important. If you're kind of standoffish, other coaches aren't going to encourage their kids to come to your game. You can't. The more success that my football and basketball teams have, the more success I'm going to have. So I want them to win. There are some coaches who get real possessive and they're like, well, I want to be the best sport here, and so they won't outwardly say it, but they're kind of jealous of other teams' success. Man, I want everybody to win on my campus, because the more they win, the more that helps me. And then the same thing for me. The more I win, the more that helps them. When they're bringing student athletes in on the recruiting visits and they walk into one of my matches and there's 1,500 people there, they're going to realize that athletics are important to that university, and same thing. If I take a kid out and there's 15,000 people in our football stadium, wow, this is the real deal. This sports matter. And so anytime you can show that to a recruit or a family that's on campus, they're more likely to come. And so they're going to want to be a part of that when they get there. So use that built-in fan base of really strong athletic fans to your advantage.
Do you guys do brother-sister teams or anything like that?
We have not. We've done some SAC competitions where we've paired up teams. Like in the fall, we used to do a SAC event in the spring, but everybody's so busy in the spring with all the other sports, it's kind of hard. But we've done some, like we'll mix all the different athletes together. Like there's 15 different teams of 20 people, and there's like 2 kids from each sport or depending on, could be more. But like the teams are mixed from all the different sports. Right. And that's a great way to kind of just let them know, hey, there's more going on than just what your sport is. And if you want them to come to your game, you have to go to their games.
Right.
It's a two-way street. So That's pretty critical.
So the one slight potential downside is something that happened my first year at Midwestern was we were waiting to find out if we were going to make the tournament that year.
Uh-huh.
And it was because Texas Women's was playing, I believe, at UTP.
Uh-huh.
And our girls were at the football game, and it was a playoff game.
Yeah.
And football lost. So everybody in the stands are all depressed. But TW lost from 2-0 up.
Yeah, I remember that match.
It was completely stunning. And so our girls are screaming and yelling because they got into the tournament. It's like, right? Little contrast in emotion there.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it happens.
Listen, if there's anybody out there that has questions, or, that you think of later, feel free to shoot me an email or give me a call anytime. I think John can probably give you my email or put it out there. And but it's actually, I can probably do that right here. I don't know if I can do that. Yeah.
And we actually have one of our Rui from Benfica in Portugal is asking about, he's talking about it's difficult to bring soccer fans into volleyball. I don't think I don't know about Portugal. Somebody else would have to tell me if they have hooligans in Portuguese football. But he's talking about the struggles of trying to get those obviously soccer's the sport. It's the dominant sport.
Yeah.
So how do you get people away from, not necessarily, it doesn't have to be away, because you can do both. You can be fans of both sports, multiple sports. But how do you get people who are, those real diehard football fans or basketball fans or whatever, and get them into the volleyball gym and get them engaged?
That's a great question. I think it's obviously a really slow process, but it has to be a personal and individual process. You're not just going to get a group of people just to come. You've got to reach out to maybe some influencers. That's a big word. People who are within that group that are leaders and people will follow. So if you get some of those people, like you make a personal invitation, you invite them to one of your matches, and you give them a special seat somewhere so that they know what's going on. It has to be like, if you want that diehard soccer fan or football fan who's never been to a volleyball match to come, you've got to take a personal approach, I think, and if it's the right person, they're going to start to tell other people, hey, you to this, and this was actually pretty cool. I didn't expect it. I did, it's volleyball. I think about Uncle John in the backyard, and, it's not that, but if you take a personal approach to it and you start slow, you can build it. But there's no one-stop shop where you're just going to get 5,000 fans to come, because you do. It's a process, and so, but I think a personal approach is the best way to start. But you've got to handpick the people that you're going to invite on a personal level, because if they're influencers within their group, they're going to bring people with you. And influencers is a big, fundraiser type word. I learned that. Influencers are important. You want to find people who are going to influence other people. So if you pick the right people and you get them to come and you show them what it's really like, and now you got to have something to show them. It's just like recruiting. You get kids to come to your campus and you're in the middle of nowhere. If you don't have something to show them, they're not coming. Right. If you have a great game environment and a fast-paced game, athletic game that you can show, they're going to start talking about it. And that's how it starts, I think.
Yeah, and I think maybe specifically in their case, find somebody in one of the supporters groups, because usually those bigger clubs, they have different supporters groups, that might have different sections in the stadium. Pick one of those and, find out who the leader in that, who's the guy who bangs the drum all the time or starts the cheers or whatever, because that's probably the guy who's a pretty big influencer.
I think so
if you
too.
Get them, hey, okay, bring them to a match and have somebody sit with them and explain what's going on and show them, hey, look at, watch this guy's going to jump serve and it's going to be 80 miles an hour. And another guy on the other side's got to try to get in front of it.
Yeah.
And the athleticism or the skill or whatever they, like you said earlier, find something that they can relate to and that you can link to our sport and say, okay, this is kind of like what you see there in terms of creating space or creating time or trying to overload a situation or something like that. So for sure.
For sure.
Yeah. All right. That looks like that was the last question. We've got Chuck's email address in the chat. So if you want to hit him up, but otherwise, thanks Appreciate it, Chuck. Thanks for everybody showing up.